The thing is, democracy is not a one size fits all. Let me take it that way. If it's done properly, like I'll give you an example, like in Africa, you can look at Botswana. It's the best example of like a functional democracy. I think they've done well. After the colonialists left, they took over the system and they had leaders they had systems in place. And the leaders that came into government have not bothered to change the constitution. They have not fiddled with, they're not obsessed with power. So they're doing the right thing.
Democracy means the people shall govern. It's a government by the people, for the people.
Okay, what do you think when we refer to the word democracy? What comes to mind, bro?
What comes to mind is equality, it's fairness.
Okay.
It's a system that allows people to govern. The people shall govern. It gives power back into the hands of some of the common folk.
The common man.
Exactly.
Okay.
It gives
So
the
like-
man on the street a say. If we're looking at Africa,
Okay.
you're looking at places like Ghana, right? After independence, they did a pretty good job modeling what democracy was.
Okay.
They kind of set the tone for everyone.
Okay.
And then you look at other countries like Botswana. That's a pretty good example.
Okay, that's yeah.
Considering that historically they were a monarchy at some
Yes,
point.
they were, yeah.
So having transitioned to where now power is in the hands of the people and not only the king, that was a good example. And of course, we can't forget
South Africa
home
as well.
sweet home. Yep.
Yes, South Africa as well.
30 years. I mean, that's how old our democracy is.
Okay,
Only 30 years.
That's quite a lot, but not compared to Botswana, because they got their independence in like
back in the 60s.
60s. That's where they got their independence. Wait, was that the place where there was that transition from a monarchy state to?
Yes.
Oh, that was the so that's when it was actually established.
Yeah. So shortly after the colonialists left,
Okay.
right? I believe his name was Sir or Chief Seretse. I forget his surname. But if you guys know what the King of Botswana's last name is, please hit us up in the comments.
Exactly.
But then, he did a very good job facilitating that transition where we're moving from a monarchy to a democracy. And they set up proper systems in place.
Okay.
Systems within the government itself that would actually govern, quote unquote, the democracy and would give it some sort of headway. So it got going, and when it did get going, it could be managed, it could be overseen.
Okay, the
and it could
facilitation of this democratic governmental system it's literally effective and efficient in some way or another.
Exactly.
Because of how they implemented it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was actually looking at like the different types of democracy, because that's so important to do. And I found that there's like a bunch, there's a list, right? So there's basically like a direct democracy, which is the people, that's the purest form of democracy. So where the people actually govern, and they're the ones determining how leaders should, run the country and govern. So they have a direct say. Then we have representative democracy, and we have parliamentary democracy. That's where South Africa falls in.
South Africa falls under parliamentary democracy.
And representative.
Yeah. What's the difference between parliamentary, representative, and the first?
Okay, they're basically almost the same. It's where, like you said, people actually determine who should be in power. So we have like a representative, right? A representative, we vote a particular party in place. You guys are going to represent us in terms of making decisions. Now, from a parliamentary perspective, it's like there's different layers as well now, right?
All right.
So we're still electing people to be in position to represent us, but there's like multiple parties involved. There's a parliament.
I see.
Yes.
There's a parliament.
There's a parliament.
All right.
Another one is, I think, autocratic democracy.
Yeah, I mean, look, autocratic democracy is literally an oxymoron.
Exactly. So it can't be. Basically, this, what it represents.
Yeah.
It's like dictators but it camouflaged as
As
a
a
democratic.
democracy.
Yeah,
Yes.
like this, but it's not really.
Exactly. It's for lack of a better phrase, it's like a puppet democracy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like democracy on paper,
Yes.
but then in real life, that's not the case.
No, it's not the case actually, because there is just a specific group of people that are ruling and governing everything else. On the outside, we're like, yeah, we're gonna vote for this one. It's us. We are making the decisions, but on the inside, it's like,
yeah,
okay, nah, you guys ain't doing anything.
exactly.
Exactly. So we spoke about Botswana and South Africa and how they compare. South Africa only has been independent, or rather, democratic,
Yeah.
for the past 30 years.
30 years.
Botswana,
If you look at, let's say, past since about 1966, somewhere there.
And of course, you have other countries where democracy has been manipulated. The constitution has been changed to favor the incumbent. And if you look across Africa, I don't know if you want examples, but I mean, there are countries whose constitutions have been changed twice or thrice because one president decides, okay, you know what, now the term limit should be removed. And then what happens? Of course, he removes the term limit just so that it stays in power. Then if there's a certain clause later that does not favor him, he also removes that clause. You know, just it's a selfish thing to do. But you see that it's just abuse of democracy because the people that made the constitution made it in mind, keeping in mind that those checks actually make sure that you leave power. And even you as a leader, you make sure that, I mean, you're not going to do the wrong things because you know you only have 8 years or 10 years, whatever the term is. But now if a guy is in power for 30 years, 40, you've seen, like in the case of Gabon, I think, you know, like it's a family business. I think the family has ruled for 50 years. You go to Togo, it's another example of a democracy gone wrong. Like and the trend seems to be like spreading across other parts of Africa.
I guess that, don't you think, okay, if we had to compare the two countries, don't you think that's the reason why they are much more like, we can actually say the governmental system is much more efficient and different from South Africa's governmental system? Okay, let's talk about it in terms of like corruption and all sort of things that come with it.
Well, to an extent, yes, because they've had more time to actually carry out democracy.
Exactly.
They've had more time to implement systems. They've been around longer as a democracy.
Exactly.
That means they would have learned what not to do. And they've basically got 38 years on us in terms of how to govern themselves.
That's quite a lot. And they got it when their country was still in infant years. It was still developing.
Exactly. So they had an opportunity to kickstart their country's rejuvenation process.
Exactly.
They could actually just press the start button and then have things fall in place. Obviously, a lot of work had to go into that, but given the circumstances they were in, I'd say they did a pretty good job. South Africa, yes, we were governed. We had a country already. We had a government in place. But of course, you need to look at the apartheid system that basically suppressed almost 80% of the population.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's a lot of work to do.
That's a lot of work to do. It's a lot of wrongs to be rewritten.
Sure.
It's a lot of shuffling that needs to happen. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. That's very true.
When you're talking about it in terms of corruption, in terms of, I'd say transparency.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it boils down to the differences, and it's a very minor difference.
Okay. Yeah, because I wanted to ask, like, because both are democratic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We all say both are literally democratic, and they sort of run the same way, no?
They do.
Okay.
Essentially, they do, because then they have a basic structure, but the fundamental difference comes shortly after the executive level. The executive level is the president, right?
Yes.
The president is the head of
the
state.
Head of state, yeah.
And is the head of government as well. Slightly under that, there's the legislative level. This is where it starts to get interesting, because now you'd think that the legislative levels would be more or less the same.
Yes.
Because that's where all the laws are made. That's where kind of like the manual or the blueprint for running the country.
Of everything should be run.
That's where it happens. But there's bodies there that actually are responsible for these.
Okay, how?
And good question that you asked. How? These are your constitutional courts or your legal bodies, but then the highest legal bodies in the land.
Okay.
And in Botswana, there is a single entity that is responsible for that. So by virtue of that,
the single entity determining like the decision making and the policies and
the laws, the policies, and everything like that. So that makes Botswana a unicameral system, right? But in South Africa, you have two bodies. There's the National Council of Provinces and the National Assembly.
So, and these two are different?
They fundamentally, they're not different, but as entities, they are two separate entities, and they collectively make
decisions.
The decisions, the laws, write the script, as it were.
Okay.
So that's the major difference between those two countries in terms of democracy.
Oh, so that's the major difference in regards to like the democratic structure.
Basically, yes.
So families across South Africa face an uncertain future as a growing number of people are losing their jobs. So as we grapple with this, the backdrop is a continuing theme of corruption. Enrolling blackouts, water shortages, a shaky healthcare system and myriad other state failures. Others say this is the cost of corruption and negligent leadership.
So now, what's the possibility, right? This is the question. What's the possibility that this democratic systems can turn into plutocracy? And how can that happen?
So how likely is it that these systems
can be corrupted?
Yeah,
for people that don't understand, plutocracy means basically a governmental system that is governed by rich individuals.
Exactly. So the elite class make the decisions that influence everybody else. So in that sense, it's not truly a democracy.
It's not. It can even be termed as elite democracy.
There it is.
Elite democracy.
It's elite democracy.
Yeah.
So it's to the advantage of the elite. It's to the advantage of the mega rich, the most influential.
Exactly.
And therefore, the less influential, less rich, and less elite people in society effectively have no real say.
They have no say. It's like the common man.
Pretty much. The common man is voiceless.
It's voiceless. So meaning even your vote doesn't really matter.
No.
You are not responsible for like determining the decisions of what policies should be passed, what laws should be passed, who should be in power and all. No. It's actually the elite. That's what plutocracy means.
That's plutocracy in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
All right.
So what's the possibility of that turning into a plutocracy governmental system? And what's the possibility of that happening in South Africa or Botswana?
Well, in South Africa, in Botswana, let's start with Botswana.
With their governmental structure.
With their
what's the
governmental
possibility?
structure, it's possible. We can't say it's impossible. It's very possible, but at the same time, if you have one body that is responsible for legislation and laws and everything, you need everybody who's a member of that to be in agreement.
Okay.
Everybody needs to be in agreement that yes, we're actually doing this, or at least the majority has to be in agreement. So it's a bit tricky to do that. It's tricky to buy the majority if this is how you're going to approach it, right?
Yes, because that's how you have to approach it.
You've got to buy the majority.
You have to buy the majority.
And that might not always be easy.
And serious challenges. And I think one of the biggest problems in South Africa and in other parts of the world is corruption. But again, if there are problems of corruption or improper behavior or conduct, take the people to court and have a prosecutorial and a judicial system that has integrity. Because when you take action against some of the big names, people who are connected, who are related with leaders, then you send a message that indeed nobody is above the law.
Yeah, but if you look at Africa, we're struggling with democracy. In many countries, we have what I would call benevolent dictators. I mean, they're chosen, they're elected, but they may not be, there's no fairness in the process. So my argument is from a democratic state. A benevolent dictator is somebody who loves their country. So whatever they're doing, even if they're not following this democracy like we know it, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So some of these guys that I'm talking about, like, actually are working for the people. They are pushing development. They're pushing projects. Whereas, like you all know, like in some democracies, that's not even the case. I mean, we elect a populist, somebody who's popular. But what is the guarantee that that popular guy is actually going to give us services? Sometimes it's counterproductive. The popular guys may not be the ones that can do the job best. They're just chosen based on numbers. And that system I'm talking about, where there's a benevolent dictator, is that he might also be elected, but he may not be the most popular, and yet be the best, the most able.
But if you have a system like ours here in South Africa, where
Bicameral.
Where it's bicameral, where you've got two different bodies responsible for legislature, and there can be possibility of conflict by virtue of having different people in there.
And different parties.
Different parties.
Because how many parties exist, bro?
Too many. I mean, the ones that are influential are not that much. I can say less than 10 probably, but look, it's a lot still.
That's a lot.
So
yeah. Multi-parties, yeah.
If you had to give it a probability, it's super high. It's actually much higher in a bicameral system than in a unicameral system for a third party to come in and then make it basically a plutocracy in that sense.
Okay.
The emails appear to show how one wealthy Indian-born family, the Guptas, allegedly bought or bribed their way into the heart of government and the presidency of Jacob Zuma. One official told us the Guptas offered him cash and the job of finance minister.
They offered initially an initial 600,000 payment and 600 million later.
As a bribe?
And I don't know how to define that. I mean,
but they were trying to buy your loyalty as a minister.
You will have to work with them, basically, that's what they said.
A shadow state run by the Guptas?
Essentially, the shadow state run by the Guptas and Zuma.
Honorable Speaker, I don't know whether members want to play politics. Firstly, people every day say something about President Zuma in this country. Should I stand every day, tag everybody to court? You say a lot of things about me. Should I do so? If I were
you can take me to court. You can
He's answering
this is
you,
not your
Honorable Malema. Point
this is not
Honorable Malema. It's not your turn. Honorable Malema. Point of order. Honorable
Everyone
Malema.
speaks here. This is our house.
No, Honorable Malema, you have asked your
question
question.
against me. You can take action against
you, me, and some of the people are no longer with us fought for this country. Yes. And now it's in the hands of a few individuals. Amen. And we are saying enough is enough is enough.
Let me put it this way. Africa's biggest problem is leadership. I think I went to a conference, it was a UCT conference, and the speaker there was emphasizing that Africa, the votes are important to get us the leadership that we need or deserve. Because if we get the right leaders in place, then definitely they can put in place laws that help us curb some of these influences that we're talking about. Take a country like those countries that are rich in minerals. Okay, let me just use a very good example now. Look at now we are moving from democracy to military like coups. Why? Because people are tired. But if we had leaders who think about their people, I'll give you an example. Like, of course, Africa began on a positive note, like in the 60s. Look at guys like Kwame Nkrumah. Those guys had interests of the country. So I'm not saying globalization was not good. It was still going to happen. But if we had those types of leaders, we had Magufuli in Tanzania. I mean, Chinese companies were coming in, American companies were coming in, but they were coming in on the terms of the locals. So for me, I think the vote will always be important. But of course, like I said, the quality of leader is the most important. If you get a leader that is, focused and for the people, it still plays a very big role.
We've seen the relationship between the Guptas and Jacob Zuma.
Yeah.
When did Jacob Zuma come into power?
Jacob Zuma was in power from 2008 till roughly 2017, 18. Just under 10 years.
Jeez, and the Guptas were actually behind Jacob Zuma getting into power to some extent.
They played a role in him.
They actually
being
played
in
a
power.
role. Yeah, they actually played a role.
Whoa.
They actually played a role in him getting into power. Not only that, previously to him getting into power, they had been in relation.
So he had a relationship with them prior.
Since back then, bro.
So these relationships are nothing new.
No, they're actually nothing new.
Okay. That actually explains a whole lot.
Yes, they're actually
I wasn't
nothing
aware
new.
of that.
Oh yeah, they're actually nothing new because guess what? One of Jacob, the famous Duduzane Zuma, was on board in various Gupta companies.
Yes, there were a few investment companies, and Duduzane Zuma is known to be in business with a member of the Gupta family.
In fact, all
Rajesh
of them.
Gupta
Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
is his business partner.
Yeah.
There's a specific investment company. Name is escaping my head right now, but they're responsible for various investments across Africa, infrastructure, property, etc. And a lot of these Gupta-linked investment firms communicate with that company. So they've got an interconnectedness in how they operate, basically.
Exactly, bro. So that's just one of the examples. I mean, they tried to argue about it. Oh no, it was not like that, but it was evident because, bro, it was so bad to the point where these people actually determining who should be in power, who should be where, and they were responsible for certain funds.
Really?
Yeah, like they were at one point they were in charge like of ESCOM and Transnet. Like they were determining who should be on board, who should not be on board, allocating funds and everything else.
That's scary.
That's what plutocracy is. That's just one example
That's
of plutocracy.
just one basic example, right?
Just one example of plutocracy. And another one is basically the whole incident of, I think it was Ace, what is it? Ace Magash.
Magashule. Yeah.
Exactly, with the Rupert. When they found out Ace was involved on account of fraud, guess what Johan Rupert said to Ramaphosa?
What did he say?
Should fire Ace.
And that decision went about.
Yeah,
boom, just like that.
Yeah, it went about.
But then this is no surprise considering that when the transitional government came in 94, Johan Rupert by then already had started taking over his father's empire and all that stuff. He was a strong advocate for bringing in foreign investment into the country. He famously said people will invest with their minds, but not with their hearts in South Africa, right?
Sure.
Because they're smart people. They can see that it's got a lot of potential, but the dark history kinda is a deterrent to anyone investing.
Wow.
So he advised a lot of those committees, and a person of interest that he's been in touch with since 94,
Ramaphosa.
none other than our very own president,
Exactly.
Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa.
See, doesn't
so if he told him, hey, look, buddy, I don't want this guy in power. Can you please just retrench this guy or kick him to the curb quickly?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I was just telling you earlier. So when, I don't know when this happened, I think when Zuma was still in power, when he took out this financial minister, Nhlanhla.
Nene.
Exactly. When he took him out of power and placed on his own puppet, guess whose decision was that as well?
Was that a Gupta-led decision?
Yeah. Is it Royan something, D something Royan? That was Gupta's as well. Then guess who was against it?
Was Rupert against it?
Yes, he was against it as well. And guess who he called to the meeting to address this whole thing, this displease of his?
Cyril?
Exactly.
It's funny because now every plutocratic person, or every plutocrat, if you want to call it that, has some sort of like a funder, has some sort of go-to person, right?
It's like they've earned favors with certain politicians.
Exactly.
That's what a plutocrat, does. It's like, and plutocrats cannot exist as individuals, of course, and as families, in the case of the Guptas as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like they have a favorite politician they've targeted.
Exactly.
And they push them till they get in position of power, and that's when they start doing the things. Is that not called state capture?
That's essentially state capture. And I mean, if you followed the whole story on state capture, you'd see how a lot of SOEs state-owned entities were basically given to members of parliament, influential people in government, and then basically large amounts of them were just like basically handed out to these people. A lot of underhanded deals, a lot of opacity. But if you look at the size of these companies and the people that are behind them, you start seeing the links between those big companies and the plutocrats that we're speaking about, right? You look at Eskom, for example. That's an example of a state-owned entity that's been badly looted, that's been badly depleted of resources, that's been used as a money laundering hub, quite frankly. And something as big as that being sold off to people under the influence of plutocrats is scathing, honestly. I mean, with Cyril and what do they call it? Farmgate. That clearly wasn't a trust, because that's cold hard cash. I don't even know how.
That's not a trust.
How much was it? Like 15 million? 5 million?
I think it was 5 million. Yeah, it was 5 million USD.
That's money,
bro. How much is 5 million USD?
That's hella.
Bro, 5 million USD that was not disclosed. And it's crazy how when it got lost, he didn't disclose that the money got lost.
Didn't. And who's the source of that money? Sudanese businessmen in exchange for cattle. Nah, that sounds fishy, bro. That sounds fishy.
In exchange for, is it buffaloes?
Yeah.
It's buffaloes.
For buffaloes. I mean, for bulls.
Is it buffaloes or bulls?
Bulls. Yeah.
Bro, I don't know. I mean, even if it was a business transaction, should it not be disclosed?
Considering who it's done with.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, fine. He's a businessman outside politics.
Exactly.
Sure, nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But this has to be something that's traceable.
Yeah, I mean, it's your money.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do whatever you want with your money.
Yeah, why are you hiding it?
That's cool.
This man put money in a couch.
He actually put money in a couch.
Bro, it was in a couch.
Damn, bro.
Bro, it was in a couch, bro.
How you store money in a couch?
It was in a couch.
Didn't they tell us to stop doing that when we were kids? Like, store your money under the bed?
Yes, they're like, no, don't do that. Bro, it was in a couch. So imagine about, I think, based on what the report said, 5 million in a couch.
5 million in a couch?
Yeah.
That's one expensive couch.
And they stole it.
Yeah. Obviously, bro, it's in a couch. Of course it's gonna get stolen.
It was stolen, and he actually didn't report it. Because why? He didn't want to raise alarm. But then again, guess what? They cleared him of that. They said he was not guilty. He was not, it was fine. He was cleared of that.
Yeah, man, he could have.
Again, it goes back to that plutocracy thingy. And I mean, there's just many examples of this happening. It reminds me of Russia as well, Putin and his oligarchs, where, for those that don't know, an oligarch basically is just the same, almost similar terms as an elite, a plutocrat. Is it that's
a plutocrat?
Yeah, a plutocrat. I'm saying plutocrat. Yeah, plutocrat. Yeah, it's basically almost the same thing. Yeah, it's just that oligarchs are like specific. It's business, right? And so Putin also had. In fact, while reading on this, I actually found out that he was elected by oligarchs.
By the oligarchs.
He was. For him to become prime minister, before that, the Boris guy, right? Bro, it was, you know what? It's so crazy. In government, there's money to be made.
Clearly.
There's a lot of money to be made, because guess what? These oligarchs, majority of them were nobodies, bro. Before 1991.
Yeah.
Nobodies, bro. Some of them were driving taxis.
Jeez.
Some of them were selling in the streets.
So then how did they rise to that level?
Relationship with the government. Relationship with Boris, the guy.
Boris Yeltsin.
Exactly. When he got into power, they had relationship. And guess what? A lot of state-owned businesses became private. And who took over this private organization?
Yeltsin's buddies.
Exactly. And that's how they were able to enrich themselves. They enriched themselves to the point where It was bad. The gap between the rich and the poor was just terrible. And it was crazy how they were getting targeted now.
They're getting targeted.
Yeah, the oligarchs were actually getting targeted because people got frustrated.
Yeah.
People got it here, bro. They were getting targeted now. Wanted to take them out. Then when Putin came into power, they helped elect him into power, by the way.
So in that way, they bought themselves protection.
Yeah. Because they needed to vote this guy again on his second term.
Yes.
The Boris guy. They needed to vote him on his second term. And in doing so, they also elected Putin as the prime minister because they needed as much security. But little did they know, Putin also had other plans.
Turn the tables.
He turned the tables and he stated that, oh, guess what? Whoever is not on my side can
hit the highway.
But when you are hitting the highway, you are not going with anything, you found.
Jeez. Okay, so it's just like you're gonna dip, but with nothing.
Yeah, you're gonna leave state-owned property, state-owned.
The state.
It's gonna belong to the state. That's what he did, basically.
Wow. Talk about holding a gun to someone's head.
I know, bro. So I'm really not sure. Looking at that, I don't know if that's gonna be a okay, I don't know. I think it would take a lot of guts for any governmental system to somehow establish and work on that, because if this thing is deeply rooted, because with Putin's one was just a short period of time.
Yeah.
That was...
Couldn't be more than 10 years.
It was like 9 years. This thing took place, actually. So that's fine. But now imagine 30 years deep into this type of system.
It's ingrained. It's ingrained itself into the system. Getting it out would have to be restarting the system, as it were. So scratch the constitution, burn it up and rewrite it from scratch. Tear it up, write up a new constitution, write up a new democracy, rewrite the rules, as it were, and then we can think about how do we go around the elites. How do we stop the plutocrats? And look, 30 years into a democracy,
I don't see that
rewriting
happening.
the constitution doesn't sound practical.
Okay, personally, I actually don't see that happening.
It's quite a conundrum, and my comment on that is, if you can't beat them and you have the stomach for it, join them.
But how are you going to join them? For a normal...
Oh yeah, for the average schmuck.
How do you join them? Knowing that, guess what? This system is aimed at effing you up.
Physically get into bed with some of them. Just kidding. Don't do that, guys. Yeah. Who knows? But I guess it all goes down to something that I've always believed in, and that is, if you weren't the architect of the system, if you didn't design or build the system, you can't control it.
I think the decision making is still in the hands of big companies, small groups of people. Because if you look at decisions that are taken, they're not in the interests of us as Africans. I'll take an example of mining. I think I'll be particular. Look at the DRC, the richest country on the planet. What interests of the people have been actually met in that country? People are so poor in the richest country. Why? Because the foreign companies that go into the DRC, they don't care about the local guys. They don't even care to upskill them. They want to keep them in the jungle. There's no roads. There's no infrastructure. There's no communication. So for me, I think the globalists, the multinationals are there for themselves.
Okay, this comes to justify the reason why a lot of people hate the rich or capitalists. This is the reason why. Because I was on a forum, right? A Nigerian forum. And the question was asked as to why people hate Dangote. Yes, a question was asked as to why do people hate Dangote? Why do Nigerians hate Dangote? A lot of people were a bit tribal.
Yes, of course. They'd always bring up that he's a northerner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were bringing up the whole thing of, oh no, he's a Fulani thief and stuff like that. Yeah, tribalism. Fine. But on the other side, there was a person that actually stated it point blank, straight to the point. Says, oh no, the reason why a lot of people hate Dangote is because he's a rich capitalist, right? And he gets a lot of favors from the government.
That's true.
He's in cahoot with the government. And not only that, he's helping somehow spread the gap between the rich and the poor.
He is in a big way. If you look at Dangote and his empire, His empire rests heavily on the foundations of the Nigerian government.
Okay.
Dangote.
Yeah, that's actually very much evident. Yeah.
Essentially, Dangote is monopolistic in his business practices. We don't like to say it, but as far as cement goes in East Africa, West Africa,
he's a monopoly, bro.
He's the monopoly.
Yeah.
In fact, his new oil refinery that he's building. 650,000 barrels per day. Okay? That's the capacity. I saw a video on it recently just showing you this huge plots of land with these tanks. Bro, you've got tanks that say 100,000 liter diesel, 100,000 liter jet fuel. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's huge project that's happening. And there was a news insert where a member of I believe it's like some sort of I wouldn't say it's a political party, but it's like a group, right? An academic group or whatever.
Okay.
And he was calling for the Nigerian government to create competition for Dangote because I think he mentioned that Nigeria's refineries collectively can't give you more than 450,000 liters.
So it's against what? It's against their laws.
Well, it's not even their laws. It's just that he blows everyone else out of the water. Collectively, they can't give you more than 450,000 barrels per day. Dangote can make 650,000 barrels per day. So his capacity is 200,000 barrels more than the sum of the collective industry in the country. So basically, look at the way this commodity is tied to the Nigerian government, right? The economy, the Nigerian economy is heavily reliant on that oil. So it's so reliant on that oil that, guess what? The government owns 20% of Dangote oil refineries.
There we have it, plutocracy. Do you think they're gonna ever come against him in any way?
It's not in their best interest to do that.
Is he not the president now?
Basically, he runs things. He's paid for so many political campaigns, it's crazy. And every time he paid for a political campaign, the favors he'd get in return was so ridiculous. Like, it got to a point where the imports of certain goods, because he did import, or I don't know if he still does, but a lot of his business was importing things like sugar, rice, and stuff. They gave him sole permission to do that in the country as a result. He was the only person allowed to do that, bro, as a result of funding a political campaign.
Yeah, that's plutocracy in its purest form. I mean, think about the fact that he might not be the only one. I don't know Nigerian politics very well, but I don't think he's the only one.
I don't think so. He's a person of interest. You look at him as a person of interest because the connections between him and the Nigerian government.
Bro, 20%. Do you know how much is that?
They own 20% of their company.
Bro,
the government.
20%.
It's meant to be a private company. The state owns 20% of it.
How is that possible?
Well, they offered him, I think he might have proposed them, or they proposed him. Either way, the state owns 20% of that.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not in their best interest to create competition for him. Like, he's out of control, bro. Like, basically.
So whatever he says, he will go.
Who's in charge in that case then?
Bro, he's in charge.
He calls the shots.
So Nigeria is basically not a democratic country. It's a plutocracy.
Straight up.
Plutocratic.
It's plutocratic in the sense that you've got a big player that basically calls the shots. In South Africa, you have several big players. Like you said, in Nigeria, obviously, they can't just be Dangote.
No, they're various names. It's just that we
just
really
don't know them.
Exactly, but you guys can mention them, yeah?
Mention examples. Hit us up in the comment section. Tell us what you think. But that's the situation with Dangote right now.
And here we have various names. Not only that, looking at political fundings, they play a part in that.
Huge.
Like Patrice Motsepe.
Huge.
The likes of, who's this one? Is it Martin, I think Motel? I think.
He's also funding political campaigns.
Yeah, and the Oppenheimer.
And the Oppenheimer families.
Yeah, they're actually funding political campaigns. Like,
many people might say they're the monopoly man in terms of diamond mines.
Oh no, they are, definitely.
De Beers is one of the biggest diamond mines in the entire world.
No, they are, bro. We can't actually argue with that. They are.
So do you think the government's going to create competition for the Oppenheimers?
Impossible.
I don't see it happening.
Anglo-America.
I'm not seeing it happening.
Because they own Anglo-America,
yes,
right?
They do.
Yeah, but
that's not happening.
That's actually not happening. So those are just examples plutocratic. Bro, this is so sad. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Okay, this is sad. I can't even finish that. That's so sad.
No, bro, but it's very clear. It's very clear that democracy can be bought. So this is beyond democracy.
This is beyond democracy.
In that sense.
This is
like democracy
beyond.
morphed into something else. It is far beyond democracy. And the sad part, as you rightly said, was that many people don't realize this, or many people are still led to believe that they can make some sort of major significant difference when the truth is
you can't.
Not really.
Because think about the fact that, look, if I'm a monopoly man, right? I'm an elite, and I see that there's a certain governmental party that favors me and my operation in a country. What's the possibility that I'll actually fund them, push them forward, and make sure that I keep them in power?
Almost 100, bro.
It's 100%. So it actually makes a lot of sense as to why certain political parties will forever be in power and will always be in power. Because guess what? It keeps our businesses stable.
It keeps our economy stable.
Exactly. So now at the end of the day, do people still have a voice if it's like that?
People have a voice, but our voice is so soft that the megaphone that is the plutocratic system just completely drowns out the voice that we have.
Yo, okay,
our
this
voice
is crazy.
matters, but to some extent, not really.
Okay, so now comes the question, because, bro.
I think for me what is more prevalent is the globalization affecting the systems and the people in the country. I mean, they're self-centered, they're capitalists. I'm saying, just imagine like a big corporation, they're there for themselves, they don't care about the people. So like it's up to Africans and Africa in general to put up laws that, globalization is unstoppable. Like you're saying the East is coming in China, America has already been there, but it's up to us in Africa to put in place systems and ensure that the laws favor us, favor the locals. So that when the globalization people, the globalists come, they find things in place. They also have their limits. They cannot cross certain boundaries. I'll give you an example now. Like you've seen investors from the East, especially China. They come as investors, but if you go to countries now, they're selling on the streets. You're like, how is that even possible? In some countries, because of corruption, they don't, not just China, but because of the breakdown, they don't even do as they're supposed to. They say we're going to put up a hospital for $300 million. But if you look at $300 million hospital in some of these countries, it's not even worth $10 million. Why? Because we allow it. Some countries say, you know what, we want accountability. They audit you, and they come and look at the quality. The best example I can give is Rwanda. Because in Rwanda now, like if you take up any project as a foreign company, the auditors, the local auditors, not KPMG. KPMG of course plays a part, but the local auditors come and test. The local engineers, they must be happy with the work that you're doing. You're not exploitative. You're doing the right thing. So countries have a big role to play. We don't expect globalists to do it for us.
Now comes the question. How do they do it, right? And why do they do it? I think let's emphasize much more on that.
Yeah.
How do they do it and why do they do it?
If we're going to start with let's start with the why. What's the motivation?
What's the motivation entirely? Because we've just brushed over it, but what's the core of this?
The core of it, as we might have mentioned, we didn't really say it, but then the idea was there, is control. Okay. The idea is basic control. Now, if you're a industrialist, if you're a mega corporation, it's no secret that you want to limit the amount of competition that exists in your particular field. It's not to say that you don't want any competition at all, but you would like to limit the competition to some extent. And then what's the best way to limit this competition, apart from blowing them out of the water in terms of performance as an institution? Policy. You need policies that are going to be favorable to you as an institution, that will give you a leg up above the competitors.
So that means the second level.
There it is. You've got to infiltrate the second level
the legislative branch, I think.
You've got to infiltrate the legislative branch to get favorable policies that's going to give you a leg up. And how do you do that? You need to get in bed with the governments.
So in South Africa, that would mean you need to get in bed with the ruling party.
You've got to get in bed with the ruling party.
That means there's a probability that everyone in the ruling party has to participate in this.
The majority.
The majority has to participate in this. Because I think you pointed it out. What are those called?
The SOEs. The distribution of shares in SOEs. That's an example. So if I'm a mega corporation, let's paint this picture. I'm a mega corporation. I've got 5 other competitors in my industry. Let's say I'm the second out of 5, like I'm position number 2. We're ranking us.
Yes.
And then I want to be number 1. But then I realize that maybe I'm causing too much pollution by doing my business activity. Okay, and that's frowned upon. So then what could I do? I could then go to the legislative level, talk to the right people and say, hey, don't you want to turn a blind eye to the pollution I'm causing? And in return, I'm going to give you equity in my company. Because if you don't tax me on this pollution, I can make more money than the guy who's number 1. So that makes me number 1. And if I'm making more money because you've got shares, you make more money. How does that sound? Sure.
Makes a lot of sense. Because guess what? My job doesn't really give me so much. And you're promising me 5 million. Just by writing a policy, bro.
Imagine, just forget 5 million. Imagine if my company, if I'm losing 50 million every year, 50 million rand every year because I'm getting taxed on my pollution and not obeying environmental laws. And then you give me policy that allows me to do that. That means I save 50 million. Why can't I give you that 50?
Okay, I can actually give you 50.
I mean, I've shown that I can take that hit. I can absorb the 50. No problem.
I can actually, you can.
I can absorb that 50, but hey, look, thanks, my friend. Here you go. Here's 25 of that. Are you going to say 25? Are you going to say no to 25 million? I wouldn't say no to 1. Bro.
I wouldn't say no to 25, but bro, I mean, if we are elected by the people at some point, because at some point you were elected by the people.
Exactly.
Let's take that into consideration. The People's Party, I think, of Botswana, right?
Yes, yeah.
I think, what are they called that? The Democratic Party or?
Yeah, the Botswana Democratic Party, BDP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. At one point, they were elected by its people.
True.
All right? Because the people believed in them and be like, okay, no, guys, get into power. You're going to represent us. We want the best. Because we want leaders that actually determine and make laws that are in our favor.
True.
Right? That don't cause us to be poor. Let us just have a good life. Right? It is so sad that if these people elected you, in the long run, you do them dirt. It's like knifing them in the back. I mean, that's so painful. That's betrayal.
It's like knifing them in the butt, bro.
Yeah, that's knifing them in the butt.
They can't even stand anymore. They're on their knees as a result. You've crippled them.
Yeah, that's true. You
can't stand without your butt, bro. It's a fact. You need it.
Oh, bro. That's the highest form of betrayal. I would understand, yeah, if as, what can I say? I would understand if as a democratic, whatever, governmental system, yeah, you are somehow, to some extent, you're benefiting yourself and you're benefiting us as well.
Exactly.
That, you see that? That's okay.
If we are mutually benefiting, great.
That I would understand. That I would understand. And I do understand to some extent, right? Because I asked the question, why does the government now do it? Because we focused on the reason why these companies and why these, elites, right, are bound to do that, to change policies in their favor and everything. Now, on the side of the government, I actually do understand. When it comes to like campaigns, the marketing, you know, telling people to vote, all these things need money.
They cost.
And they need funders, right? They need people to literally fund us. But then the problem comes in where both the ones that need funding and the ones funding don't know their limit.
I mean, look, The funding is necessary.
It is
can't
necessary.
run campaigns without money. And this is, my argument has always been, it's not the most popular party that wins. It's the party that has the most money that wins.
That's always the case. In this case, if we sing this, yes, that's true.
No, but that's actual fact.
Okay.
Many times, what wins elections is this.
It's the money.
It's the money, bro. That's what wins you the elections.
Well, majority of normal common people will not know that.
But that's just unfortunately the way it works. The person with the most money is more likely to win the election.
So
That's
in
just
this
it.
case, the person with in bed with the elites,
Yep.
or rather, the person in bed with most elites wins
There it is.
the vote.
There it is. Because then you have multiple suitors in that sense. You have multiple patrons that can fund your campaign and they can actually advance your cause. They give you the ability to action anything that you had thought of. Where all your competitors are saying things and talking about grand promises and what they're going to do for the people, guess what? You've got money to actually make it happen.
You've
You
got
can
the
actually be
necessary
like,
resources.
hey, look, this is what I can do. This is what they're saying, but here's what I can do. Who are you gonna vote for now? Oh, no brainer.
Damn,
No
man.
brainer.
This is so. You know what? I don't even know, because now this is my conclusion based on the whole structure, democratic structure. I'm seeing that. Guess what? Any democratic structure that is divided into two groups or two chambers of decision makers, I think is the most corrupt.
It's more corrupt. We can't say it's the most corrupt because, like, the advantage of two chambers is you can hold each other accountable.
Yes, it's
That's
like,
fine. But then the moment where any sort of conflict of interest starts happening, where we're not talking the same language.
But that's bound to happen when there's a lot of it's a multi-party. You know,
Exactly.
There's a lot of parties existing.
No, but that's true.
Bro, it's literally bound to happen. I mean, pointing out Nigeria also is a bicameral.
Same. Nigeria is in fact a bicameral legislative system.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, there's more than one voice who decides what needs to be done, who enforces the laws and puts things in place.
Exactly, bro. This is flipping sad. I mean, bro, this is so scary because now I know it's voting season, right? And a lot of people are going to be voting. I mean, the question still arises, do people's votes really count? Because, I mean, if we're looking at the whole plutocratic structure, right?
Yeah.
Do people's votes still count? Because this is literally an elite democracy.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at all the different elements, it boils down to the fact that this is an elitist-led democracy. That the man with the biggest voice is the one who has a say in how things go. So then that means the little guy has no say, essentially. So I think the answer to that question is, does your vote really count?
Exactly.
I guess your vote counts, but not to the extent you think it does. I think on the more lower level things, on surface level things, that can be addressed on a regional scale. Maybe, yes.
On a regional scale.
On a regional scale. Like,
but that's crazy. I mean, that's a slap in people's faces, like voters. Because guess what? We're making a difference. My vote is making a difference. But guess what? It's like a slap. No, it's not making a difference.
It's not making the difference that you think it's making. I mean, shouldn't it speak to the way politicians campaign? When politicians want to campaign in a certain region, they will identify the areas of need in that region.
Okay.
They will quickly identify what could be done to improve that region, and they'll use that as a marketing tool for people to actually vote for them in that specific region. They're very specific with the campaigns. I mean, you do get very general campaigns, but those are soft sell campaigns like save South Africa, vote this person.
Exactly.
But then when you're looking at it town to town, area to area, they'll address what you need. And that should be an idea, or that should give people an idea what power they have. They have power to control what happens in their regions. But if you're looking at it in the grander scheme of things, in the countrywide level, legislatively, no, man, not really.
I think the ability to vote just gives a person a choice. Because many of us are good at complaining about services and things that are going wrong in our countries. But we forget that we're also responsible. We must cast that vote for us to hold the leaders accountable. But if we stand back and don't vote, or we just, people have this apathy, they just remove themselves from the occasion, then you lose your right actually to complain. Because what are you complaining about if you're not voting? If you aren't changed, be involved in seeing the change by casting your vote. Yeah. I think we would look at the quality of the contestants. Put in place a law that makes sure you get the right people on the ballot paper, not just so that it doesn't become just a ticking exercise. That's one. But two, also put in place a certain level of skills that are compulsory for you to, for example, become a member of parliament. You can't be, if we're talking about South Africa, let's say you need a basic of matric to be in parliament. You need a basic of, matric or even a technical skill to be a president, that type of law. So that cuts out the clout, that you get a certain level of leader if you put those things in place. Yes.
So it's basically an exercise in quality control.
Quality control, yeah, excellent. That's it.
And what screens would you put for big global companies coming in? How would you shield them to see which ones fit and which ones don't?
Okay, I think for me the global companies coming in would be like if our house is clean. People just take an example of yourself. You walk into a house, it's messy, there's paper everywhere, it's dirty, you're going to feel free to just litter. But if I come into a place and I see, the floor is shining and everything is in place, I'll be very guilty. I won't even pour water. So with that said, I'm saying the global companies are going to play by the terms and respect people if they find things are in order, if that makes sense. But if they find chaos, like I've already explained, definitely we shall continue like that. Yeah.
Oh, well, that was lovely. Thank you so much for your response. We really appreciate it. I mean, at least I hope viewers will actually get like a different perspective to this, because most people, because we saw that this year was actually like from a global perspective, was a voting year for a lot of countries. And so majority of people, some are motivated to vote, some have given up. And so I hope your response will actually somehow enlighten people and give them that motivation to say, guess what? In as much as there are people in cahoot, or foreign companies, foreign entities in cahoot with the government, your vote still matters in deciding the type of leadership you want. And so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the viewers as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. That's a wrap.